I was I have friends who've done this and I was super excited for them. So when you asked me, I was all sorts of just yes, of course.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's just providing an opportunity and a platform for people such as yourself who are immersed in chiropractic school to just share some insights of like what's coming up for you, what's really like, you know, front and center in your mind for what's important to you and what's your priority. So why don't we just get started by you introducing yourself, letting us know like which school you're at. Obviously, it's on your shirt, but just
Yeah,
which campus you're at and like what where you're at in the program. But also actually touch on what your background was before chiropractic school. What attracted you to becoming a chiropractor?
right on. Yeah, cool. Well, I'm Hannah Staes. I go to Palmer College of Chiropractic in Davenport. So we have three campuses, but I'm at the Davenport one. Currently in seventh trimester, and so that means about a year left. And yeah, that's where I'm at currently. What brought me to chiropractic college was previously I lived in Kansas City, and I lived in the same house my entire life, and was just the second I could get out, I knew I wanted to. So
Mm,
started out my education wanting to go into dietetics. And for whatever reason, I knew that I wanted to go into some sort of medical field, but I didn't want to be a nurse or a doctor or anything like what I had seen in a hospital. Essentially, I have a whole bunch of family members who are nurses or some sort of practitioner, and they hate it. Like, all they do is talk about how much they hate their job. And
mm,
I mean, watched all of my friends say, "Yeah, I want to be a nurse." I'm like, why? Like, I just don't get it, because my perspective was just hearing like the crappy end of things. Not to say that being a nurse is a crappy job by any means. That was just the attitude I was around.
mm,
And
mm,
so from there, I was like, there's got to be a better way to facilitate health. Like, it can't just be all about preventing pain, giving people meds, taking their history, like all the things that my relatives were complaining about. And so my interest went into dietetics. Like, the idea of preventing disease was really my focus. Like, how can we just be healthy? Like, why do we have to make this hard? Why can't we just start from incorporating a healthy lifestyle and see what that does, instead of just pumping people full of medication or sending them from referral to referral to referral.
mm, mm,
So that began my interest in just alternative forms of health, if you will.
mm,
And so as I started going into dietetics, I quickly got burnt out, because it was like, it was medicine based, really. It looked at somebody's chart and it looked at them as a compilation of numbers, and like, do their numbers meet the daily requirement? No, okay, well then follow this diet plan. And it was very just like structured. I felt like a walking My Fitness Pal. That's what I tell everybody. I just didn't feel like I was genuinely contributing to anybody's life. I was just like presenting them with brown food and hoping that they would you know
mm, mm,
benefit somehow. And
mm,
that being said, the beginning of my dietetics was in dietary management, so I was working a lot in like rehabilitation facilities, nursing homes, and stuff, where they had structured diets, but it wasn't for thriving. It was like bare minimum requirements. So it just stopped fascinating me real quick.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
from there, I got into personal training,
mm,
and that was my, I guess, other form of alternative health that I figured I could make some sort of um, bigger impact with. But I felt rather caged in, at least at the gym that I worked at. It was one of those like membership based ones, and so as a result, I had to like keep my. Okay, I'm at school, so I have to put my mask on.
Oh my God. Are you serious? All
I'm,
right. Oh,
well,
like that.
I, I can do this.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got you. Got you. All right. No
If
doubt.
I need to, I can find another room, but I appreciate your patience. Uh,
There's no big deal. We can edit this, but yeah, no, if you're being harassed a little bit about that, then I understand. It's like I don't want you to feel uncomfortable because this is really just giving, shining a light on your life. But no, I really actually just want to touch on some things that you just mentioned right there, because you were
Yeah.
flowing for a second on just your path and your journey to
Hmm.
chiropractic school. And like, I think that it's so true that so many people just as a default want to go and become a nurse, or just as a default fall into dietetics because those are the options that are available to them. That's what's being represented in front of them. And
Hmm.
that's the option. Like, they don't
Right.
have other options in their mind. So how did you discover that chiropractic was even an option? It sounds like you said you got into personal training. How's that a segue to chiropractic though?
Right. In a way, it wasn't. I started seeing a chiropractor, and I was just having my own issues. That was the first time I'd seen a chiropractor. My best friend actually referred me to him because she was one of those, like, you have to see a chiropractor type of person, and she, like, carries around a supplement bag and does everything her chiropractor tells her to do type of girl. So initially I thought she was crazy, and then I was like, okay, well, let's see why you're crazy. And I went to the chiropractor, and he was awesome. He just, like, opened my eyes to, like, oh, this is a job, like, people do this. And
Hmm.
um, because of that, I felt really, just his presence, the fact that I could tell him anything and he actually listened to me. um, I started divulging to him one day how unsatisfied I was with my career choices and where I was heading in school. I felt like I was just, in a dead end sort of environment. And he's like, I don't know why you don't be a chiropractor. Like, just straight up like that. And I was like, well, I never really thought about it. And so a Google search later, mind you, I lived maybe 5 minutes away from Cleveland College of Chiropractic. And I just Googled college or chiropractic colleges, and Palmer College was the first one that popped up. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I clicked on it, looked at it. I'm like, that seems really cool. Did you know, like, a third of chiropractors graduate from Palmer? That seems like pretty good odds. Or for me, like,
Hmm.
it's people like it. I'll check it out. And so I didn't even consider Cleveland. It was just the nature of the order of the Google searches. Apparently, Palmer has really good paid ads, and it brought me here. Um, Also, it kind of worked out really nicely in that my great grand or not my great grandparents, my grandparents grew up here in Moline, like the Davenport QC area,
Hmm.
and they owned a house here, but nobody was living in it. It was their childhood home. And so it kind of, like, as I was presenting to my family, like, I think I'm going to go to chiropractic college. The first thing my grandma said was like, well, we have a house right by the chiropractic college where chiropractic started. I'm like, how did you know that? And, like, she grew up here. She grew up here as chiropractic grew up here. She didn't see a chiropractor, but she sure as hell was a local. And so she knew of, like, the BJ Palmer family. And that was really cool segue in. So I got to move all the way here. I had a house basically set up for me as I did, and it just all seemed really perfect. So that's my, I guess, journey to physically being here in chiropractic college.
That's actually a great question. What mentally got you into chiropractic once you arrived? Like, what were you attracted to, or can you just describe that experience transitioning into chiropractic school? Your experience, what it was like, maybe some surprises or challenges, and like when you knew you fully arrived.
Right. Um, Great question. I started out uh, really excited about basically the struggle, which seems interesting, but I really enjoyed the rigor of the program because it allowed, like, this inner perfectionist to just shine through. And I didn't have that environment previously. I was very um, I felt under challenged, which I think is why I felt really dead ended a lot. I was just bored, for lack of a better word. I didn't feel very stimulated. I felt like everything was kind of a joke.
Mhm.
Yeah. So when I got here, it was like right away 25 credit hours. And I'm like, shoot, this is this is nuts. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it as hard as I can, and I'm going to look super stressed out, and I'm going to wear that as a badge of honor. And that was really what got me like, okay, I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited with how hard I'm working and then seeing results. And I burnt myself out on that really quickly. It was rather unsustainable, and it wasn't it wasn't the burnout that I had hit before, where it was like a burnout of boredom. This was like hitting limits of mine that I didn't want to admit existed, but they existed, and I found them. And in doing so, uh, it was in that like process of slowing down, if you will, that I found out more of a deeper why of why I'm here. And so, about a year into chiropractic college, I'd say, maybe a little less, I found this club called KTC, Chiro's Training Culture, and fell in love with it. Just the idea of, first of all, training a chiropractic adjustment. I'm like, this fits in so well. I just train people how to like lift heavy objects because that's a relevant thing that people don't think they need to train.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be adjusting people all the time. Of course, I should be training the adjustment. And so that just made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But what really kept me sticking around was like the philosophy of why they train. And I had never really, don't get me wrong, I've always been a really deep introspective person. Like, I notice cycles and patterns and how the way the world works, and like I just internally keep track of cause and effect really well. So I've always been really fascinated by just the philosophy of life, anything, philosophical principles and ideas has always been just innately very attractive to me. And I didn't think they could ever merge with my career. I always figured like, oh, I do what I do on the day, and if I need some sort of philosophical kick, I'll read Carl Jung or any sort of philosopher. I know he's a psychologist, but also a philosopher. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because of like my inner love for that, and then the making, I guess, the connection between philosophy and then also what you do, KTC married that very well. And I previously had no like context for that. I had no previous experience with merging why you train with training. It was just like I trained, well, either, and my whys were really superficial. Like, well, it makes good sense, or it makes me feel good, or I like the way I look when I train. This one was like completely different. Like, no, you're training for yourself, kind of, but mainly training for another person, because at the end of the day, the more congruent you are in yourself from your physical system to how you view the world, that directly translate to how you care for another individual. And that's something like I always knew, but I didn't, like, again, didn't have the context for it, didn't have the introduction of other people who thought that way. And so in that, it was like a 180. I was like, whoa, I'm not here to do well in chiropractic college. I'm here to shape and form myself to being not just the best chiropractor, but the best human that I can be while I'm here, in hopes that that directly translates to the people I serve one day. And yeah, after that one just discovery of KTC, I was like all in. I was at every club, I was at any seminar I could get to. And then I became a seminar junkie and essentially got to drink up everybody else's like philosophical juice, if you will, and learned other views of the body, other views of the chiropractic philosophy. And it is really strange to me that I, not strange, but almost funny, that I had to go to all these seminars to get chiropractic philosophy in a hands-on application, because here you get chiropractic philosophy, which is a lot more like trivia and like important dates. You don't get it applied to the technique or any of your other courses. And so there's usually that like, why do we take this? Why do we take philosophy? What's the point? And so as a result, people just like oh, that's philosophy. They throw it out the door. These are the classes that matter, neuroanatomy and gross anatomy. And like, yes, they all matter. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But when you incorporate the philosophy, I'm learning that's how you learn. That's how you actually integrate the material, because you're like, oh, this is why that's important. This is why this is so cool. This is all a design of innate intelligence. This is all like, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and cooler and cooler and cooler, and you're less likely to burn out. And it was cool to see those eventually marry each other, the very structured school side of me and then the philosophy loving geek in me.
Mhm. You mentioned that you were a seminar junkie. Can you just touch on the diversity of different expressions and things that you've gotten exposed to, and maybe just build context for the pre-Chiro student of things that they can go and explore for themselves that you've been exploring as a student? Like, you just mentioned a bunch of different seminars that you've been to and how they can kind of add value to your student experience, or how they can kind of add value to your perspective or expand your perspective.
Yeah. Um, so began my seminar days actually doing a seminar that had nothing to do. It was a very mechanical approach, in terms of like, it was just about adjusting. And I walked away feeling really unsatisfied from that first seminar. And I thought, why do people go to chiropractic seminars? All they do is like have doctors come, you sit forever and you get to hear about why they think what they do is best. And then you do what they do and you're not very good at it. And they don't understand why, because they're really good at it. And yeah, that was my first impression of seminars. Like, it was just one of those, okay, sit and listen, and then try and do it and get really frustrated and hope you can just get it one day. And that's not what seminars are. I know that's a majority of them are not that way. My second seminar was actually, um, it was called an explorations camp from Darren Murphy. He did the art of the anterior dorsal and deliver the lightning, which was a cervical based seminar. This was a 2-day seminar,
Mhm.
and it was all facilitated by Darren Murphy, who's a lead of KTC.
Mhm.
And there was like, I don't know, it was my first exposure to what teaching could be. It could be a lot more hands on, it could be a lot more um, philosophically applied. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? What, why aren't you doing what they're teaching you in school? Like, not doing a compare and contrast, like this is better because of this, but showing you the why and allowing the people who are understanding and learning the technique to fill in the gap of, okay, what's better or worse. That to me, like, just the way that was facilitated changed the game. And then from there, I only went to seminars based off of recommendations from people who were really attracted to the same seminars I was. So that being said, from there I went to a KTC seminar, and that was my first like level one, which for those watching, I highly recommend, simply because it's an awesome way to get the foundations of movement in with applying a chiropractic adjustment. Like, you'll go to learn how to move, you're going to learn how to move bones, and you're going to go deep, and it's a fun seminar.
Mhm.
And from there, I think my next one was a BGI. And what called me to that again was like my sphere of influence. By everyone who I was going to seminars with were also on a seminar high. They were seminar junkies. So I was like told about this weird thing called BGI, and I was like, great, got to check it out. And that was a heck of a like introduction into a completely other lens of how to view the body, to the point where that BGI is my main framework for addressing people in this moment. BGI is tonal. It's a lot more like, yes, there are osseous forces, but the approach to the analysis of the body is tonal. So you go off of areas that have like resonant rapport. So it's a lot more subtle, and it's a lot more um, focused on the entirety of the human and less on this specific area, how to address it, how to adjust it, how to correct it. Um, and in that, it also came with a whole different theory of subluxation. So it wasn't just a seminar on how to adjust, it was a seminar on how to change your perspective. And that was invaluable to me, because once you open your eyes to a whole new perspective, you get to choose to like use that perspective to view other things, like other seminars, and the way they overlap each other is very honoring, in my opinion. I think it adds a lot of context to the simple, and it can add a lot more depth to your application of your art. And so, again, from doing a tonal seminar, I went all over the place. I've done some Numa seminars, which is more has elements of the other two seminars that I've spoken of. It's a tonal approach, and it goes through like momentum adjusting. So finding the momentum in somebody and listening to that, and then putting in an impulse when you feel the window open, as they say, or like that prime opportunity, which is another thing you have to train. You have to train to be able to listen to that. And I just got introduced to all these nuances of adjusting. It's so much more than P to AI to SDPL, you know? It's so much more than there's rib humping, let's fix it, you know? It goes way beyond that. You start looking at why the body is the way it is, and not how to fix the body is how it is right here and now. And yeah, like from Numa, I think I went into I've done yoga, chiropractic, I've done KTC like 1,000 times, and goodness, I know I'm
Why do you keep
missing.
going back? What is it that keeps bringing you back?
Right. So KTC in particular, um, it's the different facilitators every time that draw me back in. Like, yes, it's the same information, but the delivery is different. The perspective they hold is different, and then also like the people that come around and are attracted to those types of seminars are the people that I I'm I'm not trying to say I'm not proud of my other colleagues, but I'm really proud to call them my colleagues. I'm proud of the way that they view the body. Um, I'm I feel like I'm in a healing community. I'm not in a treatment community. And so because of that, I get inspired, I get motivated, I get all sorts of, don't get me wrong, my emotions go everywhere. I get insecure. I play the comparison game, like, why can't I be where you're at? I've done the same things. I go all through that, but being in that container of healers, I know my own insecurities are, they're still loved and held there. I feel very safe, and I feel like that is what makes the difference in my learning experience. Because if I'm too focused on getting it right, or doing well, or showing off, then I'm not actually learning. I'm not willing to be in a student mindset again. Um, and I'm just like very closed off. I'm not genuinely connected to the person on my table. I'm genuinely connected to me and how I think I'm being viewed. And I'd say continuously going to these helps me break that pattern, because I see that being a big stumbling block, at least for me personally, when it comes to serving a person on my table. It's just like getting in my own way and getting in my own head about all the things, which is easy to do in chiropractic college, but it's almost like my seminars are my break from school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's a huge message. I mean, it's big to really put that front and center to the person who hasn't gotten to school yet and say these seminars will serve to be a break from everything that is mounting up and piling up and the pressures of school, and also it gives you the opportunity to challenge yourself. So this was a very spontaneous conversation, and I feel like we need to have a follow up to it.
Uh,
But as you leave us, can you just kind of give a quick message to a high school or college student telling them how to prepare their mind, body, spirit for chiropractic school?
yes. First of all, shadow a doctor that resonates with you in this moment. They may not be the same doctor that resonates with you at the end of school, and that's okay. In fact, the person who got me into chiropractic college is not a chiropractor that I would ever really want to work with. And it's not because he's a bad person. We just have different views. And that's beautiful and okay. But seeing how an office flows, seeing how chiropractic works, no matter what technique you're doing, so long as you're heart centered, that's beautiful. Find not just a doctor who's making money, but a doctor who's changing lives and a doctor who's genuinely invested in your success and not for any selfish reasons. And you'll know that. You'll definitely feel that the second you walk into their office. And I'd say trust that, and having that like view of what's possible, that's actually what leads you into your eventual success. If you stay in the mindset of like it's all up to me and I got to figure out success and I got to figure out exactly what I'm doing, like you'll get far, I guess, but you're not going to expand, and you're not going to see what's completely possible. And so I'd say check in with some docs in your area or look for recommendations. And even if you can, reach out to students who are current students who know what's up, like just because they know what's not up, and they've been fooled a time or two. So if you need recommendations, I'm a decent person to reach out to. I have connections all over the at least continental US.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, find a doctor.
Mm-hmm.